And welcome. Today we've got something a little special for you. With me is Frederik, the CEO and game director at Interceptor, and we're going to take you behind the scenes for a little bit. So, tell us about Interceptor.
Yeah, Interceptor is a company established in 2012. Actually, we started as a group in 2010, working on Duke Nukem Reloaded, which was this unprecedented fan project that was supposed to bring back, Duke Nukem in next-gen graphics. We closed down the project in 2011 and started working on Rise of the Triad, 2013, as people call it, in 2012. And 18 months later, we released Rise of the Triad, which we're extremely proud of. Hardcore first-person shooter with tons of guts and blood. Just what we love to play.
Like a step back to the good old traditionals from the 80s.
Definitely.
So I mean, you mentioned obviously a lot of Duke Nukem, but your new project is not that. You're working on something a little different this time. so I mean, tell us about it. What are you working on?
We're working on a brand new IP that we're really excited about. It's a game called Bombshell. Bombshell is a game that we almost wanted to do at some point. Bombshell was originally part of Duke Nukem back in the mid-90s. She was never formally introduced, but there were concepts of a character called Bombshell. And we always wanted to take that concept and turn into our own kind of IP thing. So yeah, we're working on a...
So what's her inspiration? I mean, what can you tell us about Bombshell?
Well, Bombshell is inspired by 80s action heroes. She's a female character, extremely badass, and very different from other female characters.
Hey, what's up, guys?
Hi. Hey, what's up?
Did you mention about her bionic arm?
Yeah.
She has a bionic arm?
Yeah, she has a bionic arm. So Bombshell's arm is a bionic mechanical arm that she can turn into different weapons and use throughout the game for a lot of different gameplay elements.
Reasons.
Because of reasons.
Yeah.
She gave up her life basically for a squad of soldiers and lost her arm in action and got a mechanical black market arm created straight out of Terminator.
It sounds roughly like a Sylvester Stallone or Arnold Schwarzenegger movie plot.
Definitely, with a female, and very different from other female characters in games. You have like Lara Croft, for instance. Drastically different character that's way
She
more...
doesn't have a bionic arm, for instance. That's a fair difference right there.
Big difference, and way more rough around the edges. She drinks whiskey and drives a bike. She's not the sensual, sexy female character as you would imagine with big cleavage and such.
I'm sensing a. I mean, looking at some of the concept art for Bombshell, you're sensing a kind of a return to the 80s vibe to it. I mean, what are the inspirations that you've put? What sources have you drawn upon, like musically or thematically?
Thematically.
Hey, sorry to interrupt.
Yeah. What's up?
You guys are talking about 80s, but can I get Top Gun?
Yes.
I really want to play.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you
Thanks.
go.
Good luck.
No problem. Bombshell is inspired by a lot of 80s action heroes. Primarily the inspiration for this character has an edge of cyberpunk to her. She's this rebellious hacker kind of cyberpunk girl that has military training. So music and thematic, it's very, very gritty, dirty. A lot of heavy metal music. It's mixed with a lot of electronic music. So it's this whole mixture and fusion of electronica and metal and steel, and
She sounds pleasant.
She's not pleasant to be around. And she does kick some butt, definitely. Okay.
Well, I mean, getting past that, because obviously I imagine a lot of the people watching on right now obviously do this because we love games. What's it like? Because I mean, Interceptor as such, you're not a big studio. You work in the indie scene, you're doing your own thing. What's it like? I mean, can you tell us what it's like to have like a small team like this, and you're a bit fragmented as well?
Yeah, definitely. Interceptor is a virtual studio, and we want to do the more AAA quality games. In terms of the visuals and the production quality, and that's very hard to do when you're 5 or 6 people as an independent studio. So the way we solved that was to create what we call a virtual studio, which we use for Rise of the Triad, and that allows us to hire extremely high talented people from that worked at other other studios. We've had people from Valve and Naughty Dog, for instance, that can actually work from home. And the cool thing is we don't have to pay competitive salaries to these big studios, because these artists and designers have the luxury of being home with their family and their kids and wife and work from home, and they get a slightly lower salary, but the freedom is way more motivating for them. The way we then treat our virtual team is like a family. We have this big online virtual tool, which is basically based around a forum structure where everyone communicates about everything in the game. So we have a system administrator that gives feedback on character art. Because why not? You know, we're one big family working on these games. And I think the flat structure we have in the company, combined with the virtual model that allows people to work from home, as well as everyone being a family and working on these games together, allows us to create very high quality titles for very low budgets. With industry legends, you know, we have people like Scott Miller on board, for instance, who works on storyline for our games. So it's a very unique structure that allows us to create very high quality games.
Well, it also kind of it does show, because I mean, if we look at some of the images that we've seen, the pixel counter is quite high, so to say. Your level of detail, considering the game and everything, is actually quite high. Your budget is taken into account, especially.
It's interesting to work on next gen titles. When we look in an action RPG like Bombshell, we have other comparisons. We have, you know, the new Diablo 3 Reaper of Souls, for instance, where when you look at a top-down isometric game like this and look at the try count for the characters, it's still based on try counts that you would do maybe 5 years ago. And we're in a unique situation in the industry right now where we can move into next gen, where we can just say, okay, everything previous gen, let's screw that and let's work with the hardware of the PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and next gen PCs. And that allows us to do, you know, higher try counts. For instance, the try counts of our characters is the same as a first-person shooter from 2 years ago. So it's equal to Mass Effect 3 try counts for characters that you see from an isometric perspective. It doesn't really make that much sense because you'll never see all this detail.
You mean the hours spent on the eyeshadow are
exactly.
wasted?
But when going to the kind of uncanny valley of the detail is what we really enjoy about working with next gen, because it allows us to create visually stunning environments and characters and so on in a game you see from a different perspective. And it allows us to zoom in, show characters up close, you know, do cool cinematics and all that stuff without ever swapping out the characters. So it's a lot of freedom with working with next gen.
That's pretty cool. What can you, since we're on character development right now, what can you tell us about the progress of the character? I mean, from the birthing perspective, to like the development and the finished thing. How many stages and iterations do you have to go through to get to end there?
The design of the character itself, the physical appearance of the character, started out by the original 3D realms design from 97. 96, 97 was the original concept of Bombshell. A funny little Easter egg kind of thing, Bombshell was actually originally created by 3D Realms and Apogee to be part of Command & Conquer series. She was supposed to be...
She was a better Tanya.
She was a better Tanya, but this was before around Red Alert, but before Tanya was become a popular character. So she was supposed to be the competitor to the Commando, which is pretty funny. We read through some of the early designs that Bombshell was supposed to be in Command & Conquer, and it shows they were big Command & Conquer fans at 3D Realms and Apogee. That was really funny because we're big CNC fans as well. But then their concept turned into to Bombshell in its most popular understanding is that, you know, when you call a girl a bombshell, you know, she's often busty and sexy and blonde and so on. So that was the original concept. She didn't have a storyline per se. She was very loosely defined. But we liked the idea of having a female character that was kind of a female action hero. That you know, could be the female version of Solid Snake or Duke Nukem, for instance. But could you know, she could play with those guys, and she would be a real challenge to those guys. You know, Master Chief is another one that she could be a real challenge to. So we decided to bring in an element that would make her unique. Besides her backstory, which is a really painful backstory, and her journey throughout the game and the storyline is also a very painful journey for her. We won't spoil anything, but there's a lot of.
If you had to, let's be honest, if you had, what is the biggest spoiler you can give us?
Oh,
Actually, what's the biggest spoiler there is? Let's just cut straight to the
All right. Well, the biggest spoiler is that
That's did not see that coming. Yeah, okay.
No, right?
That is going to upset a lot of people.
It's gonna be hilarious.
Once they play the app, I'm looking forward to that. That's okay. Yeah.
But yeah, we needed to give her an edge and give her the element of her that would compete with big brutal aliens and intergalactic adventures and so on.
Yeah.
So we decided that she needs a motherfucking heavy robotic arm that can annihilate enemies and turn into
with little consideration paid to how you still walk up straight when that thing kind of
exactly.
Yes.
That is
pure traditional 80s style logic there.
Pure badass logic.
Bigger weapon.
Exactly. The bigger the better. So, but yeah, it brings in a lot of gameplay mechanics that we really like. For instance, the way her arm can turn into different weapons is really cool. We have one weapon which is kind of like a minigun, and the secondary fire mode is basically where you punch the ground. And the hand of the arm basically folds into the ground as a stand, and then she detaches it from her body, and it turns into like a sentry gun. So you can detach that, it turns into a sentry gun, and then you have a pistol in your hand, and you can use that sentry gun to lead away enemy fire.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's super badass. You can use a lot of different things. There's another mode where you basically launch it in the air and it turns into a little drone. That's called Shelly's little friend, and it flies around and basically helps her defend herself from enemies. So there's a lot of cool gameplay mechanics where you can use your arm at different things, but also at the expense of sometimes losing it. Some puzzles you have to shoot your arm in and do things for you while
ending up weaker while doing it.
Ending up weaker while doing it, for instance. So we're experimenting a lot with how we use this in gameplay.
That's pretty cool, actually. But speaking of gameplay again, because we kind of keep coming back to it, I would like to point out the similarities to things like Crusader No Remorse, and obviously, I mean, you can see where your inspiration comes from, and that era of computer gaming. Sorry, that's what you get for life. But when obviously for those of you who remember the era back in the 80s and the games that we had, there will be a lot of very obvious traces, but looking aside from that, look into things like music, voice acting, sound especially, is also a really integral part of it.
Definitely.
So how do you handle that challenge? Because I mean, obviously for a small studio, you don't have the budget to hire an orchestra to do a symphony for you.
Exactly.
So what do? How do you get that atmosphere?
So we had Andrew do our composer do all the music for our previous games, and Andrew does an amazing job. But what Andrew does best is heavy, as we say, heavy fucking metal. The Rise of the Triad soundtrack is absolutely kick-ass, blasting heavy metal all the way through. For Bombshell, we kind of needed to go in a different direction. Bombshell she does have that Tarantino attitude, grindhouse feeling over her. But the game is also epic in scale. So you need that combination between orchestrated music and heavy metal. It was a big challenge for Andrew to put together. I think we referenced a lot to Hans Zimmer.
Orchestra metal. I think you've invented a genre.
Orchestra metal. There's also a bit of electronic in there because we wanna kind of symbolize her arm and the effectiveness of her arm through the music. So it's a big mixture of a lot of different genres. There's a small little sample of it on our website, and we're gonna put up the theme as well, so you guys can hear the official Bombshell theme. But it's been a challenge. But I'd say Hans Zimmer has been the biggest influence on the quality of the instruments. And Andrew is doing one hell of a job. The soundtrack for this game is gonna be absolutely blasting.
Cool. That sounds good. So what are you doing for things like voice acting? Because I mean, I hate to draw attention away from it, but we do see some games that, well, should be burnt at the stake for the quality of their voice acting. I won't get into which games, and it's got nothing to do with you guys, but I just don't want to derail it. But obviously, that is a huge make or break factor. So I mean, what do you do for stuff like that? Because I'm thinking like your funding must be limited, and voice acting isn't cheap.
Exactly.
How do you handle that? How do you deal with it?
So the voice of Bombshell is obviously the most important aspect of the game. The voice actor brings life to this character. First of all, we have John St. John on board. John St. John is a really good friend of ours. He does the villain in our game, which he does amazingly well. Absolutely badass. And then we have Rachel Robinson, another professional voice actor. She does the president in our game. It's a female president. And we have a voice actor called Amy Naeem doing Bombshell.
Okay.
And it's been quite a process finding the correct voice actor to do Bombshell. But Amy is doing one hell of a job. There's enough toughness. You get that Sarah Connor from Terminator toughness in there, but also the vulnerability of her character, and it's a very delicate mix. And you have to be really careful that it doesn't get too cheesy, because we don't want to end up in that group where she's another cheesy characters with cheesy one-liners with no personality. You know, when she sees her dead squad being killed by aliens, you can hear in her voice that these people care. She cares for these people, but also you hear the anger and the revenge in her voice. So it took a lot of time.
Damn you, anonymous grunt number 5 was my friend.
Exactly. It's a personal vendetta she has against what you'll see in the story.
But that's an interesting aspect, actually, because I mean, quite often, and obviously we're running it down slowly here as well, but quite often you see a lot of these game universes, especially from that era, who make the mistake of being in on the cheese, so to speak. Instead of taking their own universe seriously, they set up all these criteria, and then they look at it and go, it's a bit silly, that, isn't it? And then they start getting self-ironic and self-aware, and it might seem like a defense mechanism, but a lot of the time the game suffers if it does not take its own universe very seriously.
We talked about Duke Nukem before as well. Duke Nukem is a great example where where they went wrong with Duke Forever is exactly what we talked about earlier today. The issue, what made Duke 3D so genius, besides its gameplay, was that the world itself took itself seriously.
It was very dark, very gritty.
Exactly.
Obviously, Duke
very scary in many points. Once you hear the Octobrain for the first time, you're shitting your pants.
Yeah, God, I did not want to go down those corridors. But it's true. There was an element to it for those that remember. Obviously, that Duke might have been full of one-liners, but the game itself the game was serious. It was an action movie, but it was an action movie that believed its own premises.
Exactly.
So obviously that's something that you obviously want to have along. But I mean, wrapping it down, if it is from a game developer to the fans, really, for the viewers, is there anything in particular about this entire experience that you'd like to share?
I'd like to talk a bit about the lawsuit of what's been happening with us, because there's been a lot of questions. Are you guys making a Duke game? Are you not making a Duke game? And the reality is, once something like this happens, you have to stand by. And lawsuits take a long time, and it's a long process. And while we take a break, we can't just sit and do nothing.
Oh, okay.
So we saw a great opportunity that we wanted to grab. That this is our chance to do our own IP, and we grabbed it, and we started working on that, and it turned out really, really well for us. So that's how Bombshell came alive. We always wanted to do Bombshell at some point. So the opportunity presented itself, and we really wanted to reach out for it. And about the previous game that we worked on, we might get back to. It all depends on what happens.
Yeah, of course. We won't really. There's no point in getting into that. Yeah. But it's true. It's interesting to see how you. I mean, if anyone out there has aspirations, if something gets in your way, then find a different project and start. Keep working.
And it's nothing about who's right or wrong.
No.
It's just the respect for the whole thing. We can't respect ourselves working on something while there's a lawsuit going on.
Yeah, no, of course not. Yeah. It sounds like a really good choice, and I must admit, I'm sure many of us are actually looking forward to having a mess with it and see what the game is.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for taking the time.
Thank you very much for coming.
Yeah, no worries. See you.